Hello, and welcome back to the Ask the Color Expert podcast. Today's special guest is Jessica Ramsey. She is a solo suite owner in Encinitas, California, of which I'm super jealous. California is one of my favorite places in the country. And she is a very experienced hairstylist that's always learning. And we connected in person. She shared that she's a fan of the coffee chat. So I love that. We met in the lobby of an amazing trip to Spain with a lot of like-minded hairdressers that are all together through a product that we all use and love. There was 70 hairdressers on a trip to Spain, and I got to really get to know Jessica and invited her to be on the podcast because I found her to be a very interesting and amazing human. But her twist on what she does in hair and how she shows up in hair, I thought was really important to bring to the podcast. So, Jessica, thank you for being here. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, Elaine. It's so good to see you again.
I didn't know who was showing
Now I
up. I
can
didn't know if
now
Purple
I
Hair
can
Jess was coming.
truly fangirl. Truly a fangirl now.
Thank you. I love that. She bought me a cup of coffee. We got to know each other real quick and get into deep conversation right away. So that both of us, I also introduced myself as a lifelong learner. I'm an educator and I teach, but the reason that I teach is because my brain is overflowing with things that I'm seeking out and learning. And I feel like it would be selfish to hold on to that information. And I got that vibe from you as well. And I love that. Um, so yes, part of the fun in the trip was who's showing up to the next meal. Is it purple hair Jess? Is it blonde Jess? But which Jess is showing up? And that led me to the conversation of how are you doing this? How are you showing up with all these different looks? So so excited to meet you. Such a great trip. You and I both started our trip on a separate solo journey for a few days before the group came. So I'd love to talk about that because I think most people listening are a little fearful of traveling alone. It seems overwhelming, especially the logistics of the airport and you're flying in the middle of the night and you're supposed to be sleeping, but we all know you're not. And it's like getting there and not knowing the language and not knowing how to get around. So let's start with your journey as a solo traveler going to Spain.
So this actually was my very first trip abroad. I had never traveled abroad before, and when the opportunity came to go to Spain with Ken and experience all these wonderful things that so many of my friends have been talking about for years. Because I've been with Ken now, it was probably a year and a half to 2 years before the pandemic. So I just hadn't met that threshold yet. So when this opportunity arose, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just going to be the most great thing. And I had, talked to some of my clients and, talked to my husband, and I was like, I think I want to go maybe a couple of days early, like just kind of get the vibe, feel what it is, out there. Um, I'm a terrible person if I don't have sleep, right? So that was my other thing, was like wanting to jump on the new time schedule and, all of those things. And so um, I I chose to go into Madrid 3 days early, and I went on TripAdvisor to try and find things that I could do by myself, and this, that, and the other thing, and did a lot of studying on like what the culture was like in the area, and you talk about like the pickpocketers and all of those kinds of things. And so normally, yes, I do have bright, vividly colored hair. Um, and I chose to go blonde for my trip so that I wouldn't be somebody that somebody could single out in a crowd. And then
Interesting.
and the crazy thing about that is that Elaine said, you said that I came downstairs one day with purple hair, and the way I do that is that I choose to wear wigs, and I wear them for multiple days at a time, and it's something that I've been doing for the last 2 years, and it's so fun because I can have dark hair one day and blonde hair the next, or pink hair one day and next week it can be purple and down the middle of my back. So it's just a lot of fun, and a journey that I've been on for the last couple of years, like I said, learning on how to make that happen.
That's awesome. What was your biggest lesson in traveling alone? Because I can think of at least five
Oh,
things for me that I'm just like, whoa, because it's so uncomfortable. And as an educator, I'm always caught saying nothing happens good in your comfort zone. And the more uncomfortable you get, the more you grow. And I stand by that 1000%, even though it feels like shit to be that uncomfortable. It's never a bad thing after you survive it. You're like, oh my gosh,
right,
I
right.
learned this or I did that. And I'm so proud of myself. So what did that look like for you when you first stepped off that
I
airplane and you're like, oh shit, in that big airport with all those big monitors, and you're like, where am I? What am I doing? And I don't speak Spanish.
where am I? Where's the guy that's supposed to be picking me up and taking me to the hotel? Right.
Yes.
Um, I've always had more of a sense of an adventurous kind of person to where, yeah, I might be fearful on something, but I'm bold and bullheaded and just, you know, go with it at 100 miles an hour and see where it leads me. I've always been very lucky that things have always turned out, pretty well for me. Um, and before I left too, I once educated and, drop me in any city in the United States and I'm absolutely fine. Drop me in another country and that made me nervous. So one of the things that I did do for myself was I booked a direct flight. So I had no layovers coming from America going to Spain. So it wasn't like I had to navigate the airport um, to find another plane or have a layover, or anything like that. I basically got on the plane and I slept for 10 and a half hours because
Oh, God
I
bless.
was
You need
so
to give me the
excited. I
secret
didn't
to
sleep
that.
for
Not sleep on planes. It's
I didn't
awful.
sleep for 36 hours before I left. So by the time I got to the airport, had that glass of wine, I hit the chair and I was out.
Now, was your not sleeping anxiety about the trip, or was that on purpose? Because I have read that on travel blogs that they're like, be as exhausted as you can beforehand, because then your body can't help but go to sleep.
It was definitely on purpose. I was
Okay.
definitely drinking coffee through the night trying to stay up to just be tired by the time I got to the airport.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to give, because then I'm like you, where you said you're super cranky when you're tired. That's not good either, to be so exhausted that you're just not fit to be around other humans, even if it is on a vessel in the sky.
Exactly.
Well, I had the gift of being with my son on my trip ahead of seeing you guys, where he's
Oh,
25. So he and my daughter showed me different apps that I could use to then help me navigate the being alone for a day in Madrid. When I got there, I was like, some of the countries we went to had Uber, others did not. So it was more difficult when they did not. You needed these other apps for taxis and trains and this and that. But the thing that helped me the most was walking directions. They showed me how to do walking directions where it was real time video where you could see, like, oh, there's that store right there. I need to go to the left.
oh, that's
That was,
awesome.
oh my God, that was life changing for me, because I was like, I have no idea where I am right now. That just plopped in the middle of Madrid. The other was translating menus. I was starving when I got there and I had no one to go out to lunch with. So I just wandered, found a little place 2 blocks away from our hotel. And I walked in and I was like, great, the menu is completely in Spanish. There's no English menu. And I was like, oh, wait, I remember my kid showed me how to do that translation where you take a picture and it turns it into English. So those two things alone, I'm 100% comfortable traveling alone now, just with those two things, because logistics for me was the scariest. I'm terrified trying to navigate the train system. To me, I'm like, how do I know what track? How do I know what side to be on? There's never a person. Like you said, like when you get off a plane, you can have a person waiting for you. There's no person on a train. You're just like roaming around by yourself, hoping you're on the right train. And then the stops, they don't really go out of their way to tell you that you're at your stop. As a matter of fact, we got off on the wrong stop going to Rome at one point, but my son was with me. He was helpful and I wasn't nervous because I knew I had somebody with me. So there's that element when you're alone of like, I don't have that person with me. And where do I go from here? That can really be anxiety producing, but we both are all in one piece. We both came back to our life, you know, for different and so many better ways, and not afraid anymore because we survived and we were independent, and it's very empowering. So I would 100%
I was just gonna
travel
say,
anywhere by myself.
don't you think that it was like extremely empowering, right? Like here you are, um, I'm 46. I've been married for 20 years. My husband and I have been together for 25. I have a 20-year-old at home. And, I know so many people in their younger years, that would travel before, any of those, life-changing things have happened. Um, and I think that as sometimes people age, they get more fearful, right?
Yes.
And so I felt like this was even that much more empowering, and also knowing that I had my people at home that were rooting for me and cheering for me and excited for me that I was going to be there and going and experiencing things. Was my husband jealous? Absolutely. And would I have really liked him to be there with me? Absolutely. But I think that this was something that I needed on my journey to just learn how to be more bold, less fearful, and more adventurous, and trying different things without being reckless. Like there's a lot of things in those tools that we have in our box, and I think that too, we can take these experiences and work them right into our business and help our businesses to grow too, because we've been inspired and we've seen new things and we've seen amazing doors and different colors of the world and structures and architecture and all those things that we can just bring back and put them to good use, once we get back behind the chair after we've taken that time out for ourselves and done the travel and done the things to fill our buckets, because I think sometimes we don't fill our buckets enough either.
100%.
We're so
And
busy taking care of everybody else.
exactly. From being behind the chair in the salon, I remember distinctly a conversation with a woman who very well dressed, beautiful jewelry, everything on point at all. So I wanted to shop off of her body every time she came to the salon. And she would talk about her husband, her husband, her husband. Everything was always about her husband. And she had this beautiful beach house in New Jersey and a beautiful house in Pennsylvania where the salon is. And I said something like, oh, I can't do your hair that day. I'm going to be away. Oh, where are you going? I said, oh, I'm going to this spa in Austin, Texas. Oh, you going with your girlfriends? No, by myself. What? You're going by yourself? You can't get anybody to go with you? I said, I don't want anyone to go with me. I'm looking for some space and some relaxation. Oh my gosh, I'd be so scared. I don't do anything. If my husband travels for business, I go and sleep at my daughter's house because I'm scared to be in the house by myself. This woman is 74 years old and she's saying she's afraid to be in her own house alone. I said, I'm pretty sure I know your husband and I know your house. I'm pretty sure you have a very amazing alarm system and you live in an amazingly safe neighborhood. What is it that you're thinking is going to happen? Well, I don't know. I turn all the lights on in the house. I turn all the TVs on because I think something's going to jump out of the closet. I'm like, has anything ever jumped out of the closet in the 50 years you've lived in that house? She's like, no. I said, so why is it going to jump out of your closet when your husband's not home? And for me, I had said in the beginning of this conversation, you and I are a lot alike where, yeah, we still get anxious. We still are, a little bit afraid of the unknown. But if you sit in that and you don't take chances, we started with the introduction of this is Jessica. She's a solo suite owner. I'm sure you didn't start your career as a solo suite owner. And what happens in the salon industry is people all want to do the high school Thelma and Louise, grab each other's hands and jump together. So a lot of people are even doing the solo thing together. They're like, if you leave, I'll leave, because it's that fear of failing. And if you're joining with another person, you can always blame it on the partnership fell apart. But there's this thing where girls have to bring another girl to the bathroom. When you go to a nightclub, it's like, come to the bathroom with me. Why? Why do you need somebody to go to the bathroom with you? Like for me, I've never been a you jump, I jump. I'm like, hell, I'm jumping. You want to come? Great. But I'm going. Like, this
Yeah.
is the direction I'm taking. So it's just interesting, the whole dynamic of the industry and where it has gone. And I'm starting to see the pendulum swing the other way where people are, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. I think that when people are in beauty school, they're seeing people like you having like your beautiful background here with your neon sign and your branding. And you're like, this is so great. Look at me, I'm independent. But they don't see that how many years it took you to get to that point. And they're going right into the suite. And then I'm seeing the cries for help on Facebook groups where they're like, okay, I can't make my rent this month. How do I get new clients? I'm like, honey, you should have thought about that before you signed a lease. Like, what were you thinking? So
Yes,
what are your thoughts on
absolutely.
that?
I absolutely agree. So, um, just this month, I celebrated 25 years as a licensed hairstylist. Um,
Congratulations.
I've worked in two employment salons out of that 25 years. My first year, I worked at J.C. Penney's in a corporate position. And I'm originally from Michigan, so I've actually only lived in California for 8 years,
Okay.
which was also a crazy adventure, right? Picking your family up and moving across country and starting over from scratch. And I had contacts here with a company that I educated for about 10 years. And I worked for somebody for a year once I was here, but I recognized that um, I had more strength and more power to do things on my own than to do something, with somebody else, right? And so I went and I worked in a salon as an independent, and I was there for almost 5 years before the pandemic hit. The solo suite thing is not something that I ever thought was in my wheelhouse. I always thought that I had to have that person that I could bounce formulas off of, or um, just talking. I needed somebody to entertain my clients, even, um, and thought that they needed, that busyness and then the buzziness of the big salon, and people happening all over the place. Um, and then when the pandemic hit and our governor said that we could go back to work, unfortunately, the salon that I worked at chose to close. And so I was left with a decision of, where is it that I'm going to go? And in the Encinitas area, we actually had 8 salons that closed that
Wow.
that week. And so there were a lot of people who were out there, looking for places to go and things like that. And the building that I'm in, the Solo San Diego building that I'm in, um, had no openings. And so I worked with a friend on her off days. And so I was only working like 2.5, 3 days a week. And it just was not enough to sustain the clientele that I was trying to get in, after that 3 months of being off. And then I was offered my first small suite, and I was in there for a year and a half. And then I opened up my large suite a year and a couple of months ago. And so when I opened up this one, then I rebuilt and redid, the whole thing because I was able to. Um, but for me, most of my clientele all comes from referrals. I am not a big social media girl. I
Amen.
don't post all my pictures. What's that?
I said,
What
amen.
did you say?
It's exhausting. It's absolutely
It's exhausting.
exhausting.
It's another full-time job. And I think I was posting in a post the other day. I get so excited, like formulating and mapping and doing the puzzles in my head, that I don't think about taking a before picture,
Yep.
right? Like it's just not in my brain pattern, because my thought process goes, okay, in order to get to point Z, we got to do A, B, C, and X before we can even get there. And the P for photo, it never shows up. So
The P is I
um
gotta pee because I just did this whole thing and I haven't peed.
exactly. And so I really have built it through networking and doing different events around town, or um really just ask for referrals. I think a referral is telling somebody care about somebody you love. And I have a lot of people here who are great cheerleaders on social media that really do help me. Um, and also, one of the things that I recognize about moving to California and moving into the area that I am, things like Google and Yelp, making sure that you have your clients vetting you there too, because people will go back and see what your reviews are, or whatever. So big things to help
Absolutely.
you build. But you're absolutely right. Like, if you are looking at your book and it's slow one week, you really should have been thinking about that week 6 weeks ago, not the week that you're in it, right? And I think that the other, the way to truly help yourself with that is to always rebook your clients, even if it's one of those things where you have to fake it till you become it. You have to build your own supply and demand. And, maybe you're not going away for the weekend, but you can tell your client, hey, I know that this day really works well for you at this time. I want to make sure that we get you in there that time because I'm going to be gone for such and such, right? And yeah, we might think that they're like little white lies, but it's making our clients think, oh, I really need to make sure that I get in, keep this appointment because I might not be able to get in when I need to the next time.
Absolutely. Something that I learned the hard way with travel and taking time off is the cyclical repercussions of it. My salon, my first salon that was in PA was a smaller salon. And we closed the salon and we went to Vinyl Sassoon for a week. And the salon was completely closed. And I had planned for it financially. I wanted to help pay for the staff to go to this academy and to have time off and still get paid. So everything was planned for the actual trip to happen. What I did not realize that I found out another couple of years later is the attrition rate of a client who would have been due to come while we were in California because she wasn't coming in that week. Every cycle, whether it be 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever our client cycle was, every single 6 weeks, let's just pick 6, every 6 weeks, we had a completely dead week for the rest of the year. And I was like, oh crap, I did not plan for this. And it's something that I've talked about on my coffee chats. I've talked about on other podcasts that I don't think 96.9% of hairdressers ever think about that when you're planning a trip like you and I just went on, not only do you have to plan for, I have to get all these clients in before I go, I have to rebook them for when I get back, but I have to plan some sort of new client attraction model, some kind of promo for that dead week so that every 6 weeks I don't starve to death. And it happened to me twice. And I was like, how many more times am I going to do this before I realize that was really crap planning on my part? And it used to happen to us with bridal parties. We got slammed with bridal parties certain times of the year. When I used to be the jack of all trades, master to none, I would just be like, oh, sure, bridal party, sure, kids party. Yeah, come on, kids cuts, Perry Taffy, come on in. We just want bodies. About 15 years in, I was like, I'm going to be more deliberate about who comes into my salon because there's certain services I no longer want to do. And bridal parties is one of them. And not to throw shade on bridal parties, it can be really lucrative for people who love doing them. But what we saw happen was we were a color specialty salon. So when a bridal party tied up a full Saturday for us, same thing with the cycling. People weren't in for color that day. So 6 weeks later to every bridal party, we would have this dead day because nobody was due for their color. So finally the light bulb went off and I was like, okay, the same thing that happened with vacations is now happening with these bridal parties. And the other issue with bridal parties is 8 out of the 10 women scheduled in the book are not local and are not our clients. They're the bridal party that are from another state that are just coming for that day.
Right.
So they're not going to be on a cycle coming back. So stepping back from your business, and especially now, Jessica, that you're independent and you have to pay attention to these things. These are the things that I like to share with my members of my group, my Hair Color Secrets Insiders, because they sign up because they're like, I want to become a better colorist. They accidentally get from me the life stories and the coaching of like, pay attention to this because this affects your year at the end of the year. And it's going to keep going if you don't put a stop to it.
It's so true. And I've just recently, like started taking time out of my book, right? Where I took 10 days off back in October to go on an anniversary trip. This is the first time in 25 years that I've taken 2 full weeks off, to do anything. And so, but you're absolutely right. Like if you don't plan ahead, then you're just going to keep booking yourself those crazy 2 weeks before and those crazy 2 weeks after. But if you book your clients 3-4 months out, then you're able to really control where you're putting those people in and how you can navigate your own paycheck for forever.
And like you said earlier, it becomes the client doesn't look at it as you being pushy and trying to like lock them into something. They look at it as a service of, it's like me, when I go for my annual visit to the gynecologist, I don't leave without an appointment for the following year because I'll never make it. Same thing with the dentist,
Exactly.
same thing with anything that's an annual thing. I need to know that I have it booked. It's human nature to just go about your business and be like, oh, wait, I haven't been to the dentist in how long? And all of a sudden you bite something and you know, you have no tooth. So it's a maintenance schedule that they appreciate, and they'll say to us, we created such demand with pre-booking on our time that our clients are like, oh, I will change anything in my life before I will cancel my hair appointment because I know how booked you guys are and I won't get the appointment that I want. And then if they have like their daughter's wedding 6 months from now, we have it all planned out where we know that that perfect time frame before the wedding, that like sweet spot of, you know, 5-6 days before is better than the day before or the day of. And we have it all, you know, it's like a symphony of everything flowing and falling into place because we planned for it, and they appreciate that.
Don't you think too, it's important because we're doing so many more lived in hair colors too, that those younger people will forget. And if it's on their calendar, then they're budgeting and they're thinking about, oh, I have this coming up, right? Or, you know, you have those clients that are only coming in every 6 months now. So if you give them touch points, like, okay, so you're going to come in around the 4th of July, and then you're also going to come in at Christmas, right? So you're planting those little seeds in their head and getting those times really locked in, for them, because you're really then showing how much you care to be able to take care of them and give them the time that they want and they deserve, in your chair and in your book.
Exactly. I always used to get upset, not upset, but I would give my clients a hard time when they were shocked that they couldn't get in around Christmas. I'm like, this is a date that like everybody on this planet knows when it is, whether you celebrate it or not, whether you're, you know, part of that culture or not, you know, this is a thing. And when you get irate that you can't get an appointment, I'm like, you've known about this all year. Like, you know, that that's the craziest time in the salon. And I used to let them railroad me and walk all over me. And I would add time, you know, come in early, stay late, go into my day off. And I ruined so many holidays for myself and the ripple effect of my family with trying to please clients. And when I look back, especially now as a coach, I'm like, I'm giving people advice and telling them to put boundaries up and do all the things, but I know how guilty I was of it. And that's why I'm so passionate about pushing people past their comfort zone in establishing boundaries, because you and I both did the same thing. You picked up from Michigan and moved to California and started all over again. Until you've started all over again, until you've left the people that you've given your blood, sweat, and tears to, you'll never realize how unimportant you become to them when you're no longer with them. That was my biggest lesson in the last 5 years. I'm like,
Yeah.
holy shit, that woman that made me miss my son's little music recital, my daughter's soccer game, whatever it was, that I was so dialed in and overly committed to my business, because that was always my first child before my child even came to this earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I look and I'm like, I was in Florida for an entire year and never heard a peep out of any of those women. And they don't know if I'm dead or alive, how it all worked out. They don't care how it all worked out. They act like they care. They'll like surface level, oh, hey, Bryn, how's your mom? Tell her I said hi. But really, all they cared about was, thank God she left my recipe and my color still looks good, is the bottom line. Because that's really all it's about for them. But you don't get it when you're in it. Like, you're
Right.
friendly and you think that they are thinking of you the way you think of them, because we love on our clients, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I would still love on them, but I wouldn't let them step into my time with my family if I could do it all over again. I always, the next month on Coffee Chats, the whole theme is going to be, if I could turn back time, my share days.
Nice.
I'm like, every week I want to share something that if I could turn back time and do it differently, I would do A, I would do B, I would do C, because there's such defined things that pop. You probably have a bubble over your head right now going, oh, I can think of at least 5 things that I would do differently. The problem is this new generation coming up doesn't want to hear our bitching and complaining. They think that we're old fashioned, old school. Like when you say you thrive on referrals, so do I. I still, to this day, I'm like, forget about social media, forget about, and it's not a popular opinion because yeah, they're tools, they're great.
No, it's not.
But like
Yes.
you and I, you change your hair because you buy another wig and you slap it on your head and you call it a day. Like I'm not leaving my hairdresser because you posted a picture of somebody like this on Instagram and their hair looks good. I'm not leaving for that. But and it could be a generational thing, but I think that really simplifying things and doing really good hair and putting your energy into educating yourself to get better at something. People are spending more time getting better at filtering their photos than doing a better color. That's my opinion. And that's, call me
Yes.
old school, call me
Yeah.
old lady, call me whatever you want. But
I'm with you. But I'm with you too. Yeah, I totally understand. And those filters make things so um impossible to really be able to get what that client thinks that their hair should look at, you know, or look like in their mind and what it is that they see. Um uh yeah, I'm totally with you on that. The train left the station. I was going to say something and I don't remember what it was.
that's okay. My rants will do that sometimes. And I get so heated and passionate about it because it's such an old school news. I taught for a beauty school virtually recently, and it was after our trip. And the night before, I always try to get like good content and things that are going to be like so impactful and make a big difference and all this stuff. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm really wasting my breath because when you're sitting in beauty school and you're hearing these things, you're not hearing it. You haven't had the life experience. You haven't been beat up enough. You can't you can't hear it. You know, it's just falling on deaf ears. So I was
Yeah.
like, I started the class with, you know what, guys, I had a whole agenda of what I was going to talk about, but I think I will better serve you and just ask me anything. Ask me anything about what the next 6 months are going to look like for you. Ask me about how I got started or ask me any personal question, anything. And this is the reaction that, and I can see them, you know, even though it's on Zoom, it was all the like slumped in the chair. I can't believe we have to listen to this lady, this old lady. And something just snapped in me. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to give it to them straight. And I don't care if they like hearing it or not. I'm going to give them some truth bombs. And the looks on all of their faces were like, why are you so brutally honest? Why are you mean? Why are you telling us this stuff like this? This is not cool. Like you could just tell it was not landing. And I hung up on my husband's like, whoa, what the hell was that? What got into you? And I said, you know, I have a passion for this industry and I really, really wake up every day with a mission to help change things. But when you can't, when people aren't listening to what you're trying to share with them, like if you got to Madrid and I said, hey, Jess, I got here yesterday, make sure you don't go down that hallway. It's a dead end. It's under construction. You'd be like, oh, thank you. And you wouldn't go down that hallway. If I said that to a 20-year-old, they'd be like, what are you talking? Why are you talking to me? Go away. They wouldn't listen. So it's like you're trying to keep a person from making a mistake, but you and I both know that we're where we are today because of the mistakes, because of
Of
the
mistakes that we made.
So that's the disconnect with the new gen and our generation is like, you got to let them figure it out. But it's so painful to watch when you're trying to hold their hand and say, just get hurt less, hurt less, come this way and hurt less. So that's
Yes.
the hardest part, I think. And that's what has changed so much recently in the industry. But I'm happy that we got to connect on this trip. I'm happy that I get to meet amazing stylists like you that are in the same space as far as like being a lifelong learner, being open to doing things new, better, different, because you don't know what you don't know. And again, the best place to be is really uncomfortable and just forward movement at all costs, no matter what it looks like. We have to keep waking up, keep showing up, and keep doing things just a little bit different. And that's how we all get through the day. So famous last words.
Absolutely correct.
What's your advice to someone listening to this and hearing us go on and on about all of our wisdom? What do you wish that somebody would have said to you when you were starting out and in your 20s?
Start booking Christmas now. Start booking Christmas now.
Yeah.
Start booking your Christmas hours now. Yeah. We plan ahead, plan ahead, plan ahead, plan ahead. Do it now. And have fun. Fun, just have fun, take care of yourself, and you know what? Just be the most bold, beautiful you that you can be.
I love that. How can people get in touch with you, Jess, if they want to hear more or get some words of wisdom or some education? What's the best way to reach you?
Um, probably like through a direct message on Instagram. Scissors, Cissorous. That's me. That's my brand. That's who I am.
That's
So,
awesome. Well, thank you for your time. This has been amazing. You are amazing.
oh,
And
thanks,
everybody
Elaine. So are
listening,
you.
thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
My pleasure. Bye bye. Thank you.